now we'll move on to questions and share a photo of Lena's dog. Just because Charlie's cute.
Yeah. I hope you're having fallen asleep like Charlie. Do you want to stop sharing, Kylie? So we have a few questions already in the chat. Oh, my chat's just disappeared for some reason.
Does the screen stop sharing? Yes.
Oh
yeah, so, I've got the chat.
So one great question is an auto alert function available in ct.gov or WHO databases? Kylie, do you want to talk to that?
So ct.gov has RSS feeds. WHO does not, as far as I'm aware.
Okay.
Excellent. And there's another question about CT registries automatically linking to publications. I know clinicaltrials.gov also tries to automate this process. It's not 100% accurate, but I don't think other registries have this functionality yet. I should say that, registries are adapting and developing, we're moving forward. So this guidance should be flexible. It could change. There are possibly better ways out there to do things. So just bear that in mind.
Excellent. And we have a question from Anthony Cope. If we can unmute him.
Yeah, hi. I'm a public participation and involvement volunteer with Health and Care Research Wales. And I was just wondering if the pair of you thought that searching clinical trials registers would be a very useful tool in helping the public understand their impact on research, because it's vital. We need people to participate in all these clinical trials. So do you think that would help if we had a good search and we could sort of say, look at all these people that have helped and you could be part of that too? Do you think that would help?
Yeah, thanks.
I definitely I think trial registers can definitely be a great resource to show different stakeholders what is happening in clinical trials and what isn't happening. So I think showing these are the people that participate in clinical trials, these are the projects that are going on, these are the health conditions that are currently being researched, these are the gaps, maybe these are the health conditions that we're seeing less trials in. These are all really important functions of registries to show us this research landscape and to be able to go to different stakeholders and say, this is what's happening and this is what's going well, this is what we need more of, and so on. Kylie, do you want to add to that?
I think something that's quite difficult for registers is there are a number of different types of users. So there are researchers and journal editors, but also the general public. And it's hard to tailor a search that's appropriate for all of those purposes. I know at the ANZ CTR, we have tried to think about that, but we sort of don't have a large amount of IT resourcing. So haven't been able to do that yet, but definitely something that is on our radar.
Yeah, thank you. It's I mean, I've got my foot in both camps because I'm a biomedical scientist by degree, but now I'm in the public participation and involvement realm. So I can see it from both angles, but it's like a prism, isn't it? To get the white light moment is quite difficult, like you said, and it needs a lot of thought and work. So, but thank you for that. That's really good. Thanks, and great presentation as well.
Thank you.
We have another interesting question in the chat, Kylie, from Alexander Jad. how do you deal with cases where the study register is quite vague in the outcomes for the specific outcomes and how they're to be measured? And the comment is the final published outcome could be any of many options that fall under the outcome category reported in the register. Would that count as reporting bias? It's not something that should happen, right? For example, in the NZCTR, which is hosted from the CTC, registered records actually audited, so that doesn't happen. But I know that registers have different resourcing to actually do that kind of auditing. So when it does happen, how would you deal with that, Kylie?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I guess there's not much that you can do when the registry record is quite vague, because if the published outcome falls under that general pre-specified outcome, then there's not much more you can do. But ideally, you should pre-register the outcome specific measure to be used, but we're still not quite there yet, unfortunately.
I agree. If it's too vague and you're the one assessing risk of bias, is something you may want to note, and you may want to give an unclear or probably risk of bias too. I think it's a bit of a case-by-case thing. How unclear are things? How vague is it? All right. We have a few more questions. We have one question on the correct terminology, Kylie. Is it registries or registers? And certainly something I am not very strict about. So I use them interchangeably, even though I think there is such a thing as the correct terminology.
Yes, I often myself get confused by this as well. And for 10 years was saying registries when I think I should have been saying registers. So essentially the registry is like the whole database that houses a register, and the register is what we can search. So that's the way it was explained to me. I hope that makes sense. But if you just say it quickly, then get away with it.
We have another question, which is a great one from Beatrice. In addition to advanced search, city.gov also offers expert search. Whether we also use expert search.
We don't use that, but I am aware of it, and I'd be interested to know your experiences with that. To date, we've found that the advanced search has been sufficient for our needs. We didn't really want to try and overcomplicate things, but definitely, I'd be interested to speak to you about that.
And another question about search terms, differences in American and British English. Is that something that you have to manually include, or does it happen automatically?
Yeah, I'm just going back to my slide to make sure I get this right. So in terms of differences in spelling, have a look. So on clinicaltrials.gov, alternative spellings are not harmonized, actually on both ICTRP. So you would need to search both edema and edema, ideally. And as we said before, if you're unsure, we tend to err on the side of caution and just add all these terms just to make sure we don't miss anything important.
And we got another great question about trials that are not included on registers. So maybe I can take that one, whether there are any trials and what kind of trials are not included. And ICMGE requirement now says all trials should be registered prospectively, so before they recruit any participants. And that is something a lot of journals now mandate to publish any studies. So in theory, we have a mandate for all trials, so all interventional studies, not observational studies, to be registered prospectively. Now, how well does that actually happen? There's different data on this depending on what kind of trials you include. And obviously it's fairly difficult to assess because we often only have published studies and then can see how many of those are registered. So we did a study a couple of years ago where we looked at how many studies are prospectively registered, and we found a very high rate of over 90%. Yet maybe the journals we looked at were slightly higher impact than I think others have had slightly less optimistic numbers. So long answer short, it's a growing number. It should be most high quality large trials. A lot of ethics committees now also require trials to be registered, but you may still miss some. Kylie, did you want to add to that?
No, I mean, I think you covered most of it. Maybe the only thing I'll add is that although not mandated, observational studies are also increasingly being registered on trial registries, although they don't quite fit the structure. It's still a way of prospectively stating what they're going to do in their studies.
And we have another comment that the ICMGE mandate only applies if you subsequently want to publish your trial in ICMGE journal. I think it's not just ICMGE journals that adhere to this mandate, and it's certainly also other bodies. So it's a lot of funding agencies that now ask you to register your trial. It's ethics committees. So I think there's a growing push within the research community to make this mandate happen. Doesn't mean that there aren't still some trials that slip through the cracks.
I think we missed one earlier about nesting is finally possible in ICTRP. I wonder how long or complex can a search string with parentheses be to do what I want it to do? Because it's relatively new, yeah, I haven't tested it a lot. I do know that technically the maximum search string, I'm just having a look here. It's not in there. I find ICTRP can often struggle with longer search strings, so tend to keep them shorter if possible. It can be quite temperamental and time out. Yeah, I think the less long and the less complex, the better, really.
Excellent. I can't see any more questions. Okay, so that's the other comment that each mandate only refers to those bound by that mandate. Yes, certainly, as we've said, there are still a few trials that aren't registered, but I do think it's less, and there's less and less because I think the mandates are closing in. I think there are lots of agencies that recommend our mandate by now.